Hello, Phil 353 Theory of Knowledge students. In this video I'm going to talk about a theory of justification, epistemic justification called Coherentism. And it has a bunch of contemporary supporters and also some challenges which we're going to discuss today. By the way, there is a handout, number 12, with some of this stuff if you want to have something with the highlights to look at, and I'll make the slides that correspond to this video available as well. This is basically our class for Thursday, March 26th, 2020, pages 60 to 70 of the text. Okay, if you remember, we were thinking about Cartesian foundationalism last time, and the idea is that we have justified basic beliefs, which are appearance beliefs, and they're justified because we can't be mistaken about them, and then the rest of our justified beliefs we deduce from them. And we looked at challenges for this theory. First of all, it seems like it might not be the case that we are infallible about our appearance beliefs. We might believe that we're sensing heat, for example, when in fact we're not having a sensation of heat. There's also challenges having to do with the fact that we rarely have such beliefs about how things seem to us, and that most decisive challenge about deduction, that deduction is too restrictive. Okay. Next time we're going to talk about another version of foundationalism called modest foundationalism, but today we're going to talk about this other perspective, also an evidentialist perspective on justification called coherentism. Okay. The basic idea here is that only beliefs can justify other beliefs. Nothing outside a system of beliefs contributes to the justification of beliefs in that system. Another way of saying this is that there are no justified basic beliefs. Okay? The idea here is that any justified belief needs a reason why it's true, and a reason is going to consist of other beliefs. And the basic idea is that a belief is justified when it coheres in some sense with a set of beliefs, or the set of beliefs, your belief set forms a coherent system. Coherentists are going to deny premise 4 of our infinite regress argument. Okay, the idea is that a web of belief justifies the individual beliefs in it. Okay, so they're not going to believe in circular justification, like belief 1 justifies 2, which justifies 3, which justifies 1. Once again, they're not going to believe that a simple pattern of circular justification is sufficient, but the idea is if you have a whole system, a web of beliefs with complicated relationships between the beliefs, that whole system can justify the beliefs within it, and then in some sense, since a belief is part of that system, a belief is going to play some role in justifying itself. So they reject premise 4 and they say in a certain situation a belief can justify itself. There could be a kind of circular justification. Okay. This is going to be sort of our general schema, preliminary theory, coherence theory, CT. Okay. This says that you're justified in believing P. By the way, sometimes you're going to see this on handouts, and of course right here. That's an abbreviation for if and only if. Save a little space. Okay, IFF means if and only if. So the idea here is you're justified in believing P if and only if P coheres with your system of beliefs. Okay. This schema makes use of the idea of a system of beliefs, right? Okay, and we need to have some idea of what that is, and the obvious answer, it's simply the collection of everything you believe. It also makes use of this notion, coherence, okay, and so we could ask, what is it for a belief to cohere with the system? Any plausible version of coherentism is going to have to answer this question. Okay, so we're going to take a look first. Basically what we're going to do in the next 5 minutes is just build up to what's probably the most plausible version of coherentism. We're going to kind of build up to a plausible coherentist account of justification. All right? If we take a system of beliefs just to be sort of everything you believe, the conjunction, the big and statement of everything that you believe, and we say that to cohere with a system is to be kind of implied by it, then we're going to get this CT1. Okay, so this says S is justified in believing P if and only if the conjunction of everything that S believes entails P. Okay, so everything that S believes is the system of beliefs, and P coheres with it if it's just sort of a logical consequence. That's what entailment is, if it's a logical consequence of the belief system. Okay, this theory is not going to work, so we're going to dismiss it pretty quickly. If you think about it, CT1, coherence theory 1, implies that everything that anyone ever believes is justified, and that's just not true, right? Hopefully, we all have a few unjustified beliefs, but relatively few. Lots of other people have other unjustified beliefs. We don't want every belief to be justified. So the idea here is, if I have here sort of my everything that I believe, belief A, and belief B, I'm forming the conjunction of all my beliefs. I'm just putting them together. And C, my belief C. Okay, ... all my other beliefs. Okay, well, if you take belief B, certainly anything that I believe is going to be entailed by the conjunction of everything that I believe. Okay, so this thing says any belief P is justified if the conjunction entails it, so all of my beliefs are going to be justified, according to this theory. It doesn't allow anyone to hold any unjustified beliefs. So we're going to have to throw that theory out. Okay. Now, an obvious fix here is to talk about what we might sort of think of as global coherence, the idea of a coherent system of beliefs, right? We want, in some sense, the whole system of beliefs to be coherent. This is something that we'll think about over the next 20 minutes, but it's something that coherentists have to try to account for as clearly as possible. So this theory, CT2, says that S is justified in believing P if and only if S's system of beliefs is coherent and it includes the belief in P. Okay, probably an improvement over CT1 because it allows people to have unjustified beliefs. On the other hand, it has a couple of problems. It has a challenge in defining what a coherent system is, and it might have other problems. For example, it's unclear that all of our belief systems count as coherent. We all are inconsistent a little bit. We probably all hold groups of beliefs that can't all be true. We're all a little bit irrational at least. So if our belief systems are not coherent, then this theory is not going to let our beliefs be justified. But maybe there's a way around that. Here's a couple of other problems. This theory implies that each of your beliefs is equally well justified. If you think about it, if you've got a coherent system, okay, and you got your beliefs in the system, this is going to say that they're all justified, and it gives us no way of distinguishing different degrees of justification between them. But that sounds implausible, right? My belief that I exist is a lot more justified than my belief that my son is wearing a red sweater. I think he put on a red sweater this morning. Okay, so that's a big problem. Here's a second problem. It doesn't let a single belief be justified if the system that it belongs to is not coherent. So take a little bit of a mad person, a crazy person, irrational person, insane person. They might still believe that they exist, and their belief that they exist seems to be justified, even if they have a lot of unjustified beliefs. But according to this theory, if their system is not coherent, then none of their beliefs could be justified. That seems too strong. Okay, so building up to a more plausible formulation here, let's talk about the coherence value of a system of beliefs. Okay, it's a number that represents the system's coherence. Inconsistencies within a system of beliefs are going to lower this number, going to lower its coherence value. Inconsistencies are basically if you have contradictory beliefs, right? If somewhere in your system you believe that you have a meeting on Thursday, and maybe at 2 o'clock, and then maybe somewhere else in the system you believe that you're going to the movies at 2 o'clock. Forget about this coronavirus times. We probably all have that. There are other kinds of inconsistencies where you might have a group of beliefs. No two of them maybe contradict any other, but as a group they can't all be true, inconsistent. So that lowers the value. Explanatory connections between beliefs enhance its coherence value. Okay, so if I have a belief that my TV is missing, and I have a belief that my bicycle is missing, okay, the idea here is if I also add in the belief that I was robbed, then that explains why my TV and my bike are missing, so that's going to enhance the coherence value. The coherence value of the system is going to be greater if some of the beliefs explain others. Okay, and other factors might also be relevant. If you believe a lot of logical conclusions of your other beliefs, that might raise the coherence value of the system. If you make other inductive connections, that might raise the coherence value of the system. Okay, still pretty vague, but the idea here is pretty plausible, and it's sort of just more work to be done to make this precise if we think that coherentism is on the right track. Okay, so this is going to be our official formulation of coherentism, and we'll label it CT3. S is justified in believing P if and only if the coherence value of S's system of beliefs would be greater if it included a belief in P than it would be if it did not include that belief. Okay, remember the idea here is, you could be justified in believing P whether or not you actually believe P. Remember Mr. Insecure and his exam way back when? Okay, the idea here is if P is a belief that you actually hold, like you're watching a video right now, then the idea is that you're justified in believing that if the actual coherence value of your system is greater than it would be if you kind of deleted that belief from your system. And if P is a belief that you don't actually hold, then the idea is that you are justified in believing it if the coherence value of your system would be greater if you added that belief into your system, greater than it is, well, without that belief. Okay, and this is a very sort of intuitive idea. It's an attractive kind of idea, but we're going to take a look at some challenges for this theory like we do with pretty much every theory that we talk about. By the way, this theory, Feldman says, is based upon a version due to a philosopher, Jonathan Dancy, I believe. There's other coherentists out there. Okay, I am going to talk about two main objections to coherentism, talk a little bit about Richard Feldman's analysis of these, and give you some other sort of examples to think about. These are on the bottom of handout 12 if you ever want to look back at that. So, objection number one is called the alternative systems objection. And I'll just read the sort of a nutshell version of this. Mere coherence with a system of beliefs isn't enough to justify a given belief. And the idea here is that raising the coherence of a system isn't enough to justify it. We can imagine many alternative systems of belief with the same coherence value, but with big differences in justification. For example, compare your system of belief with the belief system of a madman. Okay, we might think of a madman with a very coherent system, all sorts of intricate conspiracy theories where beliefs are explained by other beliefs and logical deductions are made and all that. But it doesn't seem perhaps like the madman is justified in believing that the CIA has bugged his bathroom mirror or something like that. Okay. Intuitively, at first glance, that kind of might seem like a powerful objection, but it's unclear that this is really a powerful or convincing objection against coherentism. And what we're going to do here is take a little look at the printed argument from page 67, I believe, of our textbook. Okay, and here, let CT, Feldman calls it, if CT is true, let that be coherentism, or just our better theory, CT3, the CT3 version. Okay. I'll read off this argument in my lovely voice. So the idea is if CT3, coherentism, is true, then a belief is justified if and only if it coheres with the believer's system of beliefs. Okay, that seems right. That's just what coherentism is. And coheres with here is meant as increases the coherence value. Okay. The second premise says a person can make any selected belief cohere with his system by properly adjusting the rest of the system to make it fit with that one. Okay, so if you believe that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, well, you could just replace that belief with the opposite. Abraham Lincoln was not assassinated, and just adjust the other beliefs in your system, right? Adjust the other beliefs so that they cohere with that one. Keeping the coherence value steady. Therefore, conclusion, line 3, if CT is true, then a person can make any selected belief justified by properly adjusting the rest of his or her beliefs. But that's not the case. So, as you look at the screen, 3, 4, 5 are like a modus tollens argument. It's not the case that one can make any selected belief justified by properly adjusting the rest of their beliefs. So therefore, CT is not true. The conclusion, line 5 or 3-5. Modus tollens from 3 and 4. Okay, so in the argument that we just looked at, let's take coheres with to mean that having the belief in question increases the coherence value of the system. So in other words, it sort of is counted as a justified belief by coherentism. If you did the reading, these 11 pages, 10, 11 pages, you might remember that Richard Feldman rejects coherentism. He thinks coherentism is not an accurate theory of justification, but he doesn't think that this particular objection or this particular argument is a good one against it. Okay, well, why not? Let's take a look again. Okay, well, he's got two objections. One objection is against premise 2 here. Okay, the idea here is that, you could just make any belief cohere with your system, but that assumes that we have a lot of voluntary control over our beliefs, that we can pick and choose what we want to believe, and that's far from obvious. We simply don't have a lot of voluntary control over what we believe, and we can't just make any belief cohere by adjusting the rest of our beliefs, because we can't just disbelieve things that we believe voluntarily. But there's another objection to the argument that Feldman has, and that's basically an objection to premise 4 here. Okay, forgetting about the previous objection, if we were able to pick and choose all of our beliefs and just adjust our system, then, according to Feldman, it's not at all clear that a madman is going to have unjustified beliefs. I'll read you a little passage from page 68 here, sort of the top paragraph on page 68. Feldman says, so this is sort of against premise 3-4, premise 4 there. He says, for example, a person living in the Middle Ages might have a fully coherent and completely justified set of beliefs that differs radically from the fully coherent and completely justified set of beliefs of a modern counterpart. The person in the Middle Ages, they might believe that the earth is flat and that, disease is caused by witches, all these beliefs that we would think of as completely unjustified. But wait a minute, this is how they learned things. This is what they were taught. It's not at all clear that their beliefs, just because they're probably false, it's not at all clear that they're not justified. Okay, so Feldman says that the idea behind this objection to coherentism is mistaken. Okay, here's just a repeat of the theory that we're talking about. And Feldman just thinks that this argument is not a good argument against coherentism. It's compelling at first, but it very well might be the case that you could have a system of beliefs that is very, very different from the system of beliefs of an ordinary American, an ordinary person in the 21st century, but still, those beliefs might be justified. Is sort of begging the question to claim that they're not justified. Maybe a madman, that insane person, can have justified beliefs of this sort. Okay, so even if Feldman is right about that, not being a decisive objection to coherentism, there's another objection which is probably stronger. Okay, so taking a look at the theory that we're going to argue against once again, and the main technical term that it makes use of, this one's going to be called the isolation objection. And here's the nutshell version. Since coherentism entails that the justification of a belief is simply a matter of how it coheres with the believer's system, a system that is utterly isolated from reality can have many justified beliefs. But that seems wrong. The fact that a system is coherent is no guide to reality or truth. The idea here is a belief system can be isolated from reality in the sense of sort of not being sensitive to the data of experience, not being sensitive to what's coming in through our eyes or ears or nose or skin and so forth. So the idea is that the coherentist conception of justification sort of lacks a truth connection. Pardon the interruption. Okay, so we are going to discuss a kind of far-fetched scenario here, but then bear with me. I'm going to come back and talk about this objection in terms of much more sort of realistic, less far-out scenarios. Remember the case of Magic Feldman, okay? On the left is a retired NBA basketball player, the great Earvin Magic Johnson, number 32 for the Lakers, fantastic, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And on the right is Rich Feldman, professor of philosophy at University of Rochester, a basketball fan. Okay, and I'll read you this example. This is example 4.11. The strange case of Magic Feldman. Professor Feldman is a rather short philosophy professor with a keen interest in basketball. Magic Johnson, MJ, was an outstanding professional basketball player. While playing a game, we may suppose, MJ had a fully coherent system of beliefs about where his teammates are, where the ball is, what the score is, etc. Magic Feldman, MF, is a possible, though unusual character who is a combination of the professor and the basketball player. MF has a remarkable imagination, so remarkable that while actually teaching a philosophy class, he thinks he is playing basketball. Indeed, he has exactly the beliefs that MJ has. Because MJ's belief system was coherent, MF's belief system is also coherent. Okay, now this might strike you as impossible, unrealistic, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's certainly unrealistic. It seems conceptually possible, and we could test a theory against it. Later on, I'll come back to more simple, straightforward sorts of instances of this objection. But let's take a look at an argument based upon this example. Okay, this is argument 4.4. You could see it on page 69 of our text if you want. I think I'm going to present it kind of pretty much just as Feldman presents it. If coherentism, that's CT3, is true, then a belief is justified if and only if it coheres with the believer's system of beliefs. Okay, that's true. That's just what coherentism says, drawing out what coherentism says. Magic Feldman's system of beliefs is the same as Magic Johnson's system of beliefs. That is a fact about the example. Of course, Feldman's beliefs are about Feldman and Johnson's beliefs are about Johnson, but the systems of beliefs are structurally identical. They're the same system of beliefs. Fact about the example. MJ, Magic Johnson's belief that he's playing basketball, coheres with his system of beliefs. Again, a fact about the example. MJ's system of beliefs, its coherence value is higher with his belief that he's playing basketball than it would be if he didn't believe that. And if you look at premise 2 and premise 3, we can conclude that Magic Feldman's belief that he's playing basketball coheres with his system, since he's got the same system. And now if you look at 1 and 4, we can conclude that if coherentism is true, then Magic Feldman's belief that he's playing basketball is justified, since it coheres with his system, and if coherentism is true, that makes it justified. But it's not justified. Magic Feldman is teaching a philosophy class. His belief that he's playing basketball, which he does believe, is simply not justified. It's a crazy belief. It's isolated from reality. So therefore, coherentism is not true. This is a pretty compelling argument against coherentism if we accept the possibility, the conceptual possibility of an example like the strange case of magic Feldman. Okay, I'm just gonna, you could pause, rewind, watch the thing again. You could think about explaining these premises, digesting the objection here, and thinking about whether you think that this is a sound argument against coherentism. And I'm taking coherentism here to be our most plausible version of it, which is what we called CT3 earlier, and it's going to be on the slides and in this handout as well. Okay, I'll give you a much more realistic example here. Suppose we have a jogger. Person loves to jog, feeling a little bit blue, so they decide to go out for a jog. Maybe that'll lift their spirits. And this jogger has certain beliefs. They believe that the chance of rain is 40% because that's what it said on the Weather Channel earlier in the day. They believe that it's partly sunny, partly cloudy because you can look up at the sky, you can see a cloud, you see the sun. Okay. Now imagine what happens next is this. The jogger just feels a little raindrop on their head. Okay. Should the jogger believe that it's raining or that they felt a raindrop? Okay. Arguably, coherentism implies that believing that it's raining is not justified, that the believer would be unjustified, the jogger would be unjustified in holding this belief, because it seems like it would lower the coherency of the system rather than raise it. Right? Because the other beliefs in the system involve only a 40% chance of rain. Partly cloudy, partly sunny. It seems like the belief that it's raining would actually lower the coherence value of that system. I think this is a pretty serious challenge to coherentism. The idea is that the belief that it's raining intuitively seems to be justified. It depends for its justification not just on the other beliefs that are already in the system, but on the input to the system, the data of experience, the tactile sensation of a drop hitting your head, top of your head. Okay. Here's another similar example. Hopefully I'll be done in less than 5 minutes. This is an example on page 69 of our text. Example 4.12, the psychology experiment. Lefty and righty, two people, are in a psychology experiment. They're extremely similar people with the same relevant background beliefs. The experiment is one in which they see an image on a monitor, and they form beliefs about what they see. They are told that they will see two lines on the monitor, and they are to form a belief about which one is longer. They are both led to believe that the one on the right will be longer. Okay, so they have certain beliefs involving the setup here, certain beliefs which involve the belief that the one on the right will be longer and certain supporting beliefs for that. The lines then appear on the monitors, and they both believe that the one on the right is longer. However, expectations are playing a role. In fact, for one of them, Lefty, the one on the left is longer, and it looks that way. Lefty simply ignores the character of his experience, the character of his visual experience, and forms his belief entirely on the basis of what he was led to believe. He forms his belief entirely on the basis of the system of beliefs that he held just before he viewed the lines on the monitor. Okay, well, the objection here is pretty simple. If coherentism is true, Lefty is justified in believing that the line on the right is longer because believing that increases the coherence value of his system relative to him believing that the one on the left is longer. Because his system of beliefs includes evidence for the one on the right being longer and the belief that the one on the right will be longer. But Lefty's not justified in believing that the one on the right is longer. Look at what he's looking at. Okay, he has an experience as of the one on the left being longer. He should believe that. He's not justified in believing the one on the right is longer. So therefore, coherentism is not true. Okay, if we go back to the raindrop example, we could think about a similar argument. If coherentism is true, then the jogger's not justified in believing that it's raining. Or if you think that's too strong, the jogger's not even justified in believing that a raindrop hit her head. Okay, but it seems that the jogger is justified in believing this. And I hope everyone is comfortable with the explanation kind of behind this first premise here, right? Okay, the jogger has a system of beliefs which includes only a 40% chance of rain, and there's, the sun can be seen in the sky, blah, blah, blah. It seems like the coherence value of that system would be decreased if the belief that it was raining was added to it. Okay, so coherentism has challenges. Maybe they can be addressed. Maybe, if one of you for your second essay wants to address these challenges, that would be a great topic. What we're going to do next week is move on to a more modest version of foundationalism. Okay, this is going to jibe with what we did in the last video, the last class, Cartesian foundationalism. There are just justified basic beliefs, and the basic beliefs are the foundation for the rest of them. But the modest version that we're going to talk about or think about next time is going to make two departures from the Cartesian version with respect to what counts as basic and how beliefs in general are justified. So, I invite you to participate in the discussion forums, kind of almost semi-require you to do that. Yeah, I'm requiring you to do that. And chat with me on Thursdays at, let's see, what's our class? 11 o'clock in the morning for the rest of the semester. That's voluntary, but if you want to get online at the regular class time on Thursdays and chat with me for the rest of this spring 2020 semester, we can do that. Signing off for now.